Hello and welcome back to Clownfish TV. It is me, Geeky Sparkles, and it is just me for this video because Kneon is elsewhere. So we're going to talk about the whole Netflix situation with Warner Brothers Discovery. Apparently, there's a couple things going on with this. We have the Paramount might be preparing a hostile bid because they're claiming that their $30 a share is more valuable than what Netflix was offering, which brings me to the second point we're going to talk about. Netflix is using $59 billion of the money they're offering for Warner Brothers from a bank loan over at Wells Fargo. And then, not to be outdone by all that news, Jane Fonda says they need to stop this deal because it's against democracy. What the flip isn't against democracy, according to Jane Fonda? Because we did a video not that long ago where she was yelling about something else being against democracy. I don't think she understands what the word democracy means. Anyway, before we get into it, please like and subscribe. If you do, I'll give you a woohoo. Woohoo. And we're going to talk about this. So let's start with the first one. We saw this yesterday, but we just didn't have time to record it. Paramount is preparing a hostile bid for Warner Brothers, and Trump's DOJ is concerned about the Netflix deal. There's a lot of people who are very concerned about this. Hollywood is losing their crap. They are sending out letters to Congress. They are doing what they can to stop it because they are worried that with Netflix taking over, one, they're going to have the number one and number three streaming service as far as numbers go. They're also going to try to, I think, take things. Right now, they're saying they're going to be theatrically releasing things or keeping the status quo. But we all know Ted Sarandos also thinks that the future is streaming. And it's a matter of time till they do things that are probably going to destroy movie theaters. Of course, there are other studios, but they're really worried about Warner Brothers not having the DC movies and things out there all the time to hitting the theaters. There's other concerns. Netflix is known for being kind of like work, and stuff like that. And they don't like that in Hollywood, and they don't want Ted Sarandos to have that much power, basically. So they're talking about they're going to do a hostile bid. David, I'm going to call you Davey, and Larry Ellison are reportedly considering a hostile bid from Warner Brothers Discovery, arguing its $30 per share all cash offer is actually more valuable than Netflix's proposal. According to the New York Post, the Ellisons are said to be livid, which we're not surprised by, because if you saw my video yesterday, they had sent a letter before it was announced that it was Netflix. They had found out from other media reporting in Germany that there were secret meetings in the EU, in Brussels, I guess it was, about how they wanted Netflix to get HBO for whatever reason, and they were calling that out, and now they're mad about this. So they're going to be offering or positioning for a counteroffensive that they think they can win by either pursuing a hostile bid or taking their case directly to Warner Brothers Discovery shareholders. They're really, quote unquote, pissed over Paramount Skydance, a source says. They think this was a rigged deal process because of friendship between the CEOs, and they're begging the shareholders to be pissed when they find out what went down. Here's the thing. It's like, I don't really see how they can block this as far as it's concerning the theater, the theatrical studios, because, Skydance has Paramount and, Comcast had Universal. Netflix didn't really have a studio arm. So, and they're not getting all the stuff with like the Discovery news and all that. It's just the HBO Max. And you can't argue that, they're going to have two of the big streaming services because Disney had Disney Plus and Hulu. And when they got the Fox deal, they got the more control over the Hulu assets and everything else. So I think they're going to be, some people are thinking it's not going to go through, and it might not. But I think they're going to be hard pressed to not allow it being put through because of the fact that they let Disney do what they did with Fox. Paramount or Skydance already got Paramount and everything else. I think they're going to, if you're looking at it fairly, I know you might not want Netflix to have it, and it might screw theaters. But the flip side is, if you allow the other stuff, how can you not allow this? Is where I'm coming at it from. I think you're going to have a hard time justifying denying this when you allowed other things. But they're banking on Trump because Trump and his advisors are concerned about the deal because they're friends with them. They're raising the central question, how exactly does Netflix plan to skip the merger past the DOJ? Well, here's the thing. Trump's DOJ antitrust chief is preparing to launch a sweeping multi-year investigation into Netflix's dominance and alleged monopoly over streaming. See, I'm sorry, but that's not really true. There's a bunch of different streaming services. Yes, if Netflix gets this, they're going to be like, the streaming wars are over. They're definitely the biggest, fighter in the ring. But they were to begin with. Netflix pretty much invented it. Okay. And then Hulu came along and they were doing good, and everybody and their dog decided they need a streaming service. The end game would be eventually that 1 or 2 streaming services would absorb everything else. It's Highlander. We said this from the beginning. That would be the end game. Netflix, they're like afraid it's going to be too big of a streaming service, but Disney has Hulu and Disney Plus and ESPN Plus. That's okay. I think I'm not like defending it and saying that Netflix is the right place for things to go. What I'm saying is, if you're going to claim their monopoly when YouTube's coming up on all of them, and don't even get me started because YouTube's screwing over creators to do so, YouTube's catching up to all of them, and it's surpassing television views of all of them. You're gonna be hard pressed to argue that Netflix can't have HBO Max because that's too many streaming services when you have Disney owning multiple, and then all these companies are working together to try to create new services and offer different things on cable and stuff. It isn't as cut and dry as that. And the theater aspect, again, the theatrical studio aspect, they didn't have a studio other than what they did for streaming. They didn't have a theatrical studio. So it's not like they're, buying multiple studios, but, Skydance did. You see what I'm saying? I think they're going to be, I don't see how you can say it's antitrust just on that alone. There has to be some really other-handed stuff going on that makes that the case. In my opinion, people can argue with me and that's fine. But they said Netflix is insistent that its recent lobbying efforts regarding Warner Brothers not violating antitrust laws. I'm not seeing how it does either. The thing I'm seeing is theatrical. This deal could kill theaters. I mean, I don't want to say kill theaters. I'd say handicap theaters, because HBO, and they put a lot of stuff out from Warner Brothers and things like that theatrically, but they're one studio. There are still a bunch of other studios left and a bunch of independent studios left. So theaters still will have movies coming into them. Just that lately Warner Brothers has been the one kind of kicking ass across the board, especially with ones that are like indie films. And they're probably just going to go to streaming now. And I can see people being mad about that. But the bigger issue here that goes back to their hostile takeover is they were offering all cash, upfront, all cash. Netflix was offering cash and stock options. However, they had to take a bank loan to do it. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think Disney had to take loans as well. So it's not just, Disney did too, I think. But they're taking one of the largest loans of its kind to finance the $83 billion takeover, with bridge loans by Wells Fargo as part of it. But then again, if it's true that the Paramount was taken from the Saudis, if true, we don't know, then that's another loan. So the bank agreed to give half of the $59 billion bridge loan to Netflix for Warner Brothers Discovery. It's one of the largest bridge loans offered to the company to finance the acquisition. So the financing, codenamed Project Noble, is lending documents that underscores Wells' ambition to cement its investment banking bona fides as the San Francisco headquartered bank looks to go head-to-head with J.P. Morgan Chase, Bank of America, and Goldman Sachs, some of which these banks have worked with Disney before. So earlier they were relieved of an asset cap that limited its ability to grow in the wake of fake accounts, got to the bank stuff. But some people are questioning this. So they're trying to take a big loan out to pay for this. And they said that the chief financial officer from Netflix, Spencer Newman, sounds like the Mad magazine, kind of a little bit. We're committed to maintaining a healthy balance sheet and our solid investment grade credit ratings, he said. We expect pro forma leverage to be elevated at closing, with a clear plan to bring that back under rating agency targets for occurring ratings in 2 years after closing. But again, Bob Iger spent almost as much, $71 billion, to get the Fox assets. I would argue Warner Brothers assets are more valuable. And they had to take some loans and stuff to do it as well. So that's all going on. But then one more thing to throw into this video, because I just saw this and I was like, oh my God. We know Hollywood is trying to get Congress to block this. Here comes Jane Fonda. Jane Fonda doesn't know what half the words she uses means, and she always has to stick her foot in everything because, she's activist first, and only Jane likes to be an activist. So she's mad because it's against democracy. So Jane Fonda is a longtime activist, no shit, has issued a warning over the Netflix Warner Brothers deal on Instagram. She partnered with the Committee for the First Amendment And she said that the Department of Justice needs to take any proposed merger seriously because it's putting democracy at risk. So in her Instagram post, which I'm not going to bother, the message read, today's news that Warner Brothers Discovery has accepted a purchase bid is an alarming escalation of the consolidation that threatens the entire entertainment industry, the democratic public it serves, and the First Amendment itself. That's right, guys. This is called the studios have more power and we can't get what we want as actors. And I'm not getting my way. Basically, it's not democratic. It's not democracy because she's not getting her way. The actor called it catastrophic for an industry built on free expression. It's Netflix. What free expression are you not going to get? I would say they're going to argue this more with Paramount, because if they were backed by the Saudis, it was going to probably limit that quote unquote free expression that people like Jane Fonda love. So I'm not really sure where it's limiting expression. Make no mistake, this is not just a catastrophic business deal that could destroy our creative industry. It's a constitutional crisis. Wow. Exacerbated by the administration's demonstrated disregard for the law. It's constitutional crisis, guys, if Netflix gets Warner Brothers Discovery. What studio were you fine with getting it? Because you were mad about Paramount too. So if Comcast got it, it would be okay. It's a constitutional crisis, the Netflix deal. She urged the Justice Department and the State Attorney General, we know this deal or any deal of this magnitude, so any of them buying it, will trigger your antitrust review obligation, and we demand that you categorically refrain from using that power to extract political concessions that influence content decisions or chill free speech. She also said, to Netflix and any company that becomes involved in this destructive deal, we have watched industry leaders acquiesce to the administration's demand. What the fuck does that have to do with anything? Seriously, she's figuring about making it all about Trump, of our livelihood, storytelling, constitutional rights. Couple things. One, most people that work in Hollywood can't live off it. Okay, so you and your friends, but you're rich anyway, so you mean like other people, but that you approve of. Our storytelling. Where are you being hindered by your storytelling? Where? Please explain, because I don't see any place where you're not being allowed to tell the stories you want. You're free to open your own independent studio and tell the stories you want. You know who's not free to tell stories they want? Anybody not in the union, run and controlled by Hollywood. Our constitutional rights. What flipping constitutional rights are being violated? Where are your rights being violated? Please explain, Jane, because I don't understand where you're getting this shit from. If Netflix buys Warner Brothers Discovery, it does not infringe on your constitutional right. No one is stopping your freedom of speech. God, I wish we could. You won't shut the hell up most days. No one is impinging on your rights. Yours is so stupid. She argued the seriousness of the deal with Warner Brothers should have known better as an industry giant. As stewards of the industry built on free expression, we have a responsibility to defend our rights. Again, what rights are being violated? Not trade them away to pad your pockets. Again, here's how it works, right? Big studios finance movies and shows, so people like Jane Fonda can go out there and pretend that they're big deal, go out there and get work. She married around to get herself the money she had, and her family had a legacy in Hollywood. But studios pay for this stuff, whether you're an independent or a big one. They're paying for this stuff. They're being financed or whatever. They're paying for it. You guys get to make a movie or be part of a show or movie based on them producing it. No one's saying you can't produce things. You just don't want to pay your own money. No freedom of expression is being violated. No constitutional rights are being violated. All right? We know there will be enormous pressure to acquiesce. Acquiesce to what? It is critical you stay strong. We are watching closely, organizing, and ready to mobilize. For what? I'm very confused here. You're mad that Netflix is buying it because they're a big power company and pad their wallets. Flip side, Trump might be the one, and his people might be the one to be able to stop the deal, but you're mad about that too. Like, what exactly do you fucking want, Fonda? Seriously. No, we want you to shut up. I don't even know. Jane Fonda, shut the hell up, Jane. I mean, how old are you? Like 95 now? I mean, this is ridiculous. Anyway, that's what's going on currently. I'm sure it's a situation in flux. It's probably going to change on Monday. So please like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.